Welcome back, folks, to another deliciously stuffed episode of A Shot at Business Central and a Beer.
A stuffed episode? Yes, that's right, Michael. It's episode 67, our Thanksgiving special. The one day of the year when we're not just serving Business Central updates, but also a steaming hot sides of spicy jokes and cheesy banter.
I mean, it wouldn't be Thanksgiving without stuffing, Ken. Whether it's stuffing your face or stuffing this episode with enough Business Central goodness to make your ERP system gobble with joy.
Speaking of gobbling, today we're carving out time to chat with someone who knows Business Central better than we know the dessert table at Thanksgiving dinner.
Søren Alexandersen from Microsoft.
Søren, he's a real turkey. I mean techie. This Microsoft mastermind is joining us today to feed us some delicious information on the brand new Business Central agents, AI, diversity and dynamics, and maybe, just maybe, share some additional insights that even we didn't see coming.
You know, Ken, Business Central and Thanksgiving actually have a lot in common.
Oh yeah? How so?
Well, both require a ton of prep work. Everyone's got their own way of doing it, and by the end, someone is definitely going to need a nap.
That checks out, especially after I enjoy some of these delicious Blue Moon Belgian white beers. But let's not put our listeners to sleep yet. There's too much to talk about, from AI-powered Business Central agents to why Dynamics should be more diverse than your aunt's Thanksgiving casserole.
And speaking of casseroles, if this episode was a dish, it'd be 1 part tech talk, 1 part interview, and 3 parts whatever happens whenever you go off script.
You know it. So grab a plate, pour yourself a drink, and prepare to feast on this episode.
Because here on A Shot at Business Central and a Beer, we don't just talk tech, we serve it with a side of personality.
And maybe a little bit of cranberry sauce on the side.
Cheers to episode 67. Let's dig in.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Shot at Business Central and a Beer. This is episode number 67, and we have the true pleasure of having back on the podcast for the second time, Mr. Søren Alexandersen from Microsoft, who's going to be here to talk about, what's been going on with him and Microsoft and Business Central and his career and, just everything. We're going to touch on everything. It's going to be a pretty good time.
Yeah, Copilot. Is there new things going on with AI and Copilot?
What's Copilot?
Oh yeah. Great to see you guys. Yeah, great to see you. Hey Michael, hey Ken. It's been a long time, and actually I had to check when it was I was on the show last, and it was March 22nd, 2023. So it's been like 18, 19 months. Yeah.
Yeah, 1.5 years. It's longer than I thought.
Time flies.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So what's been going on with you?
Yeah, so last we talked, I was working on onboarding, like driving through the onboarding space within BC, making it easier to onboard to Business Central. And as from not the last wave, but back in April, like the wave 1 release this year, we were like, what should be the next big thing for onboarding? And we couldn't actually come up with that big thing or that super important thing, also because we had been making so many tools and frameworks and stuff that you can already use, and we were sort of waiting for that uptake to happen from various partners and customers. So, and also now, as you mentioned, Copilot, with all the Copilot investments going on, it was a good time to say, you know what, let's pause onboarding, like at least from an engineering investment perspective for now, and go like set aside more resources for Copilot. So I moved into the finance area of BC. I mean, I have experience with finance from my time as a partner and as a customer before Microsoft, but I didn't have that kind of deep finance knowledge. But I'm getting there. But that's, as you know, it's one of the legacy areas. It's was probably the original area in
Right.
BC or in NAV. So a lot of super interesting stuff, and everyone who now looks to AI would also be curious about what are the opportunities for AI in finance. So my mandate, if you will, is to figure that out with my great teammates.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to learning a little bit today, both Michael and I, and everyone else who's listening. We had one of your colleagues on recently, Kenny Pontoppidan. I know he's in Fargo now. I don't know how well you guys are acquainted. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so we taught really close. Yeah. Yeah, we talked Power BI, some of the new cool stuff coming out with Power BI and reporting and data analytics. Pretty cool stuff. So I'm sure you've got some good stuff too. But before we get too far along, we got to talk, most importantly, it's always first and foremost here on this podcast, is what beer are we drinking today?
Yes.
Right? So we've got So for one of your selections for us was a Blue Moon. Belgian white, call it, or I don't know if they're wit, is what I was in my online research looking at it. So, and this is actually, we've not had this. So 67 episodes.
Wow. Yeah, we've not had it on the podcast.
But
we've drank it before.
Right. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, we've had it before, but we haven't had it on the podcast before. So this is the first for Blue Moon. So excited here.
I'm going to say, I'm going to go on. This is one of my favorite beers. I love a good Blue Moon, and that for me, that's saying a lot because I tend to like higher alcohol beers, you know what I mean? 11, 12%, whatever. So Blue Moon, I love it. It is a good beer. Great recommendation, Søren.
That is tasty. And Michael also brought in, we got some oranges that we put in there. And it said everyone's kind of like, I see pictures of it. Everyone's got an orange slice in there, kind of accentuate all those citrusy flavors. I did, Michael, thank you. You provided a list like, hey, check out these beers. Let me know if you can get these, by you guys. And Michael shared with me, one of them was a quadruple.
Yeah.
I said, a quadruple. I don't think, I know we have triples, but I don't think we have quadruples here.
It's a pretty hefty one. It's really good, but it also packs a punch. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah.
So I love that though. That 11% alcohol, I would like that beer.
Yeah, same. I'm very much into especially sort of the Belgian style darker ones, 10, 11, 12, I really like them. But there was a risk by recommending this Blue Moon, right? Because I know it's very subtle, but it has coriander or cilantro in it. And I mean, nothing can divide a population like cilantro, right? Forget about politics. Cilantro will divide a population.
So true. You either love it or you hate it.
So there was a risky. So I'm glad you both like it.
Yeah.
I love it. Nothing. Forget about politics. Cilantro divides the population more.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, one of my all-time favorite beers. I absolutely love.
Yeah, it's delicious. The true test is to see if we pop open a second one at some point here during the discussion. Yeah. That's like that. Then you're getting it's a good score. We have to.
Yeah, and I just immediately thought. I mean, there are many candidates, and but this was just I thought about you and U.S. and this is just one of those I typically get in the U.S. at a hotel or something like that. So it just popped up immediately. Say we need to try this one and. So it had been a while for me as well, but I always like it. It's very fresh and the orange peel that comes out it has it's just delicious.
Yeah. Speaking of delicious, we were kind of checking out what you've been up to, and we see like you're a board advisor for a company called IPA Nordic.
Congratulations.
And I said, IPA Nordic? IPA, that sounds delicious.
Yes. You're not the first one to make that association. No, unfortunately, there's no connection with beer whatsoever with that company.
Darn it.
No.
Bring it on board.
I was gonna visit just to check out their facility.
That would have been great. I'm still looking for a company that produces beer that I can somehow get into, get a foot in the door.
Infused beer or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, when I'm doing like demos or on this podcast when we're talking about like scenarios, I always use my demo company, which is Cronus Brewery.
Awesome.
Because we manufacture beer, right? And then
Yeah.
we bottle it, like maybe an assembly process, and then we distribute it through sales orders and shipments, and we have to purchase all those raw materials and plan for it. So
Yes.
it's maybe we
No.
should open up our own, just
Yeah.
as a
Brewery.
Cronus Brewery, yeah. I mean,
site.
no business BC can't handle, right? So
That's right.
Yeah, perfect fit.
Podcast that site.
Yeah.
So speaking,
Yeah.
what goes hand in hand with beer is usually like music. How's the band going?
very well, actually. We're all like, I think I'm the one with the I'm in between age-wise. So our singer is about 40. I'm late 40s. A couple of the other guys sort of mid-late 50s. So we've entered the age where, injuries and work and stuff, sometimes, prevent us from seeing each other for sometimes weeks. But when we do, it's just always awesome. We had a gig here some weeks ago, just fantastic to get out and play. Like, it was a local club. Fantastic. But from next year, from January, our singer is actually going to be part of a national-wide musical in Denmark. So he's taking leave of absence from his work and just touring with this musical, like a very famous musical in Denmark. It's a Queen musical, We Will Rock You. So like the original one. So he's going to be on posters, on buses, and TV and stuff like that for 6 months. So that's going to be. But hopefully that will shine a bit on us as well at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see.
Promote the band a little bit.
He's like big dogging you guys, huh? Like,
He's been out promoting.
If he comes back, right? So that's the thing. So
right, he might go off on his own and leave you guys in the dust, with
who knows? And you know what? It'll be well deserved if he does. But of course, we hope he will come back. But let's see. Yeah. No, but apart from that, hoping for a few gigs next year as well when he comes back. But yeah.
Maybe in other directions. I think you guys did direction. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago in Hamburg. Well, I've been trying to sort of do all the lobby work I can, because next year is in Poznan in Poland, and that's actual driving distance from where we live. So it could be done within sort of reasonable. So I still have to go massage some people, but maybe if we can create some demand, then who knows if it will happen again.
Give us their email addresses. We'll lobby them too.
Let's start that promo, right?
Yeah.
Let's start the promotions right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, real quick, want to say thanks too, because we know it's later in the evening for you. So thanks for doing the podcast later, so that we can actually share a beer together.
No,
We appreciate
absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely.
All right,
Yeah.
should we jump into like one of the
I'm
topics?
champing at the bit here to start talking these BC agents. I've seen a little bit online, a couple little short videos here and there, but like we'd love to just kind of get your thoughts and where like the origination and theory and what people can expect.
Yeah, how does the idea even come about?
Yeah, it's a super exciting time, and we can always discuss the definitions of an agent. Like there's some formal definitions, and when is an agent some process that sort of has agency on its own, or when is it just a series of automations, like that can, and what is ultimately then from the customer's perspective an agent, right? So they might not be able to sort of distinguish. It's just automated and has some multi-turn human in the loop kind of experiences. But basically what we've done now is we've built this framework within BC that allows this, let's say, process to begin, given some instructions of what is the end goal, so to speak, and what is the next step, and then it will sort of engage in a conversation with the user. In this case, it's a sales order agent, where like that's the example that we've shown here in EMEA. So where it would, you could send an email to sales@contoso.com, for example, and the agent would pick that up and try to figure out, is this a relevant email at all? And then engage in maybe the customer or potential customer was asking for a price or a quote, just in natural language in the email, and the agent would pick that up and say, he probably means this product. Let me go and figure out what the price for that, or just try to engage in that conversation, and ultimately ending up with a quote in BC that's sent as a PDF, and then lifted convert to a sales order. So that's sort of that process. So engage, like acting as the salesperson, really. So it can be a huge time saver for those kind of scenarios. So that was the first scenario we sort of undertook, and on which we sort of build the rails, and the agent now engages with the user in a sort of sidecar on the right side of BC, where you see what tasks the agent have performed, and you can dive into the task and see what data was actually created by the agent, and things like that. So super cool, and the beginnings of something very, very cool.
Are you able to like make the distinction for the listeners between an agent and Copilot? Is Copilot sort of like an agent in its own right?
No,
I think a lot of people might get a little confused with it.
Yeah, it's a super interesting, and I totally get why, because we throw all these words around all the time. So the Copilot is more thought to be your sort of personal assistant kind of thing, whereas the agent is more can act on behalf of you or the team or the company, orchestrating more with sort of agency in itself to do a number of processes, or a process from start to finish. And the thinking behind an agent is that you give it some instructions, and then it goes and figures out how to do that. So instead of just making or deciding here are the 10 steps and doing some AL code or a job queue that does it as an automation, you could call it, the agent has a bit more free will. Sounds so sounds so drastic, but of course within some confines, right? But in our case, it's able to navigate the UI. So if you tell it to say, hey, go create a customer, it will figure out, okay, customer, where on the screen right now could there be something like that, and how do I create a new one? Like that's the thinking of it. Not saying this specific agent does that, but that's the thinking, that you can feed it some instructions. It will try to figure out how can I achieve that. So there is this very cool element of interpreting the UI and the application and navigating it, basically, and combining that with, let's say, functions under the hood that that are written in AL. Now go create that customer or whatever. So we're bringing all kinds of elements together, and then with this UI that can sort of interact with the user, because you need to have human in the loop in certain situations, depending on your comfort level with automating it fully, and so on, and until you sort of gain trust and get comfortable with it. So super exciting. Absolutely.
Cool. So if you look at that sales order agent as an example, would you say like how far along are you? Would you say that like this is just scratching the surface, and we're going to see improvements to that sales order agent over the next several releases?
I think you nailed it right there. I mean, yes, we've scratched the surface. There are all kinds of challenges with things like this, just with the let's call it creativity of the LLM that we used to know from when you chat with GPT, because all this is sort of chat based under the hood. So reining in that creativity and telling it to say, hey, there's only, out of all the possible outcomes, only these two are the viable ones. So how can we help it stay on its course, if you will, with the agency that it has? So I think that is the challenge, right? That is reining in that kind of creativity. But you're right, we've scratched the surface, and of course you could think of all kinds of ways to improve, even just a sales order agent. Many cases where you can also, because there's a lot of unknowns. What happens if the customer on the latest email writes something back that we hadn't expected? How will the agent react to that, right? I mean, not and not just the obvious about reacting to profanity or explicit content, what have you, but also what happens if the customer actually asks for a scenario that they would expect the agent to be able to handle, but we don't handle for some reason. So getting better at that, I think, is going to be the natural next step.
And is that like what people talk about, like training their large language models? Is that same concept kind of apply for these agents where you're training it like a little bit like okay, yeah, that's good, do that, but maybe okay, don't do that and to kind of focus it? Is that fair or way off?
Yeah, I know what you're getting at, and it kind of makes sense. That's not the approach we have right now. Also, because first of all, we don't train on customer data. We don't train Copilot on customer data in anything, right? So, so it's more about testing it in all kinds of ways and see how it reacts, and then modifying the underlying prompts to try to, sort of figure out, okay, it didn't react nicely to that part. Let's see what we can do to do that, to make it more clear that that's the action it should take. So it's also a mix of some deterministic stuff that the natural next step would be X, but if it goes no, it's Y, then we need to sort of figure out why is it that it doesn't want to go X. Like, so I know it's a bit abstract, but that's the nature of these things.
Right, and it's almost probably virtually impossible to get it 100%. On a different note, did you guys happen to see, I think it was in China, they have AI robots, and one little AI robot went rogue and commanded the other 12 robots to follow it and go home? Did you guys see that?
No.
Pretty funny, yeah.
One he was done for the day. Tired.
They're all
tired,
done.
right? She's like,
they're all done. And one little one just went rogue and got all the other robots to follow it and go around.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then to that point, Ken, I mean, that's really the great thing about agents, right? They don't get tired. They don't have any workers union, or like they will do stuff at 3 a.m. in the morning. Like that's, and but as long as we can get them to work well and do it within the spirit of the company, right? Especially when you have to deal with communication externally, it's important that it acts like you would expect it to, like the company would like it to. So no, yeah. So I mean, I think the whole point about this, like agent versus not agent, because you could probably have written a very large piece of code that would have done the same thing as a job queue and just paused until it got some reaction from a user and things like that. But the thing with the agent is it can interpret that text, that natural language email text, and it can interpret in the UI what might be the best thing. And one of the very cool things, I don't know if you've seen in the videos from the directions from the keynote, but one of the cool things is that because it navigates the UI, in one of the emails from the customer says, I would like gift wrapping with that product. And as you know, we don't have any gift wrapping feature in BC, but because there was an extension that had brought a gift wrapping field to the order, Copilot was able to say, okay, there's a gift wrapping field. That's probably what the customer means. So we'll add that. And then, so by nature of how it's built, it naturally supports whatever you add to BC without, because it navigates the UI. So that's super cool in itself.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty cool. Do you we had a guest on the podcast a few years ago. He used to work at Microsoft, a guy by the name of Mike Silver. And I asked him this question. I said, do you think that in the future, going forward in the future, with all of Microsoft's integrations and technology and everything, that there's going to be like one unified platform, and that's just kind of where everybody goes? And now, to me, it seems like Microsoft might be moving towards one unified platform, but that is able to be controlled through AI, making it a lot simpler. Do you think, I mean, I don't know if you know, but is that kind of like the trajectory that Microsoft might be on with certain softwares, where it's a unified platform, or no?
I think there are multiple answers to that kind of question. And I think if you're thinking about like what is the code base for BC and how that's written, and what's the code base for Dynamics 365 Finance and now sales that runs on Dataverse. Like, if you mean that kind of platform, I think that's very hard to achieve, and I personally don't see that happening anytime soon. And we don't have any desires to go to Dataverse as our database platform, for example. Maybe someone has, but I mean, just imagine the amount of work that would take to make that happen. But if you mean platform as let's create open systems that can be consumed via APIs, regardless if it's the graph or BC or sales or whatever system, and then have something else orchestrated and build some UI somewhere, or maybe not even a UI as we know it. And then these systems just become sort of back-end data providers in the sense that could definitely be a future in some sense. So BC serves up some data somewhere to however you consume your, let's just say, agent. Maybe it's BC feeding the data for some of the answers. Maybe it's sales for some of the other parts of the answers you're looking for. Like, yes. So in that sense, combining all the systems and calling them a platform, yes, I think that could be very feasible.
Yeah, I had thought in the past that Teams was going to be that kind of platform where it just brought in everything, right? You'd go into Teams and you'd be able to get your Outlook email. You'd be able to interact with BC, sales, whatever it might be, Power BI. But
yeah, and I think I like that latter approach that you said, where it all kind of works seamlessly. I was doing a presentation for a group of people recently, and I'm it was primarily Business Central. But I happened to be doing this scenario where I was using like the edit in Excel feature. So I was like editing some data in Excel, and then there was an email in my Outlook inbox, and I popped open the Business Central view from within there and clicked on a link, and then I sent a link in Teams, and it would actually like created like a little confusion, because they're like, wait, are you in Business Central? And I'm like, as I was like sitting in Outlook, I said, I mean, yeah, I am, right? It's interfacing. I'm in Outlook, but yet the lines get blurred, right, between all these applications, and they all work so like seamlessly together. I say, like, like half jokingly, like, it's hard to tell where Business Central begins and ends, right?
Yeah.
With these other tools.
And I think you're touching on a super important topic, which is sort of the human factor in all of this. Like, what is confusing and where are our habits? We're used to working within this UI. So when I say that thing about the platform of interconnected systems and maybe not having a UI, I don't personally, I'm not sure I'm personally sort of a subscriber to that way of working. Like, just imagine going to work and all you had to pop open was your Copilot chat. And now you can do anything within your ERP or sales or whatever, and it would just orchestrate the whole thing. I hope I'm not, going towards, against any company policies now, but is that the way users would like to work? I don't know. For one, we need a lot of trust in this Copilot to do what we tell it to and not have the same creativity maybe as we're used to having. Because you're dealing with systems of record and database and so on and finance. But I mean, already now, there's so much habit. When we change a button in BC, like there's a risk that someone or many people will get confused because you changed the button. I mean, a few years ago, when we moved the edit in Excel button in under the share icon, that caused confusion. I remember speaking to an IT admin where he said, well, he got calls from his users where they said, why didn't you tell us that was happening? Which also speaks to how we communicate about changes, which is also hard, right? It's hard to reach the right people. So there are many elements in that. But you're right. But there is a nice thing going on now, and we can come back to that a bit later, for example, with Copilot for Finance, where we're trying to bring the data from the ERP into where the user's natural habitat is for some kinds of roles. But let's come back to that maybe a bit later.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we can roll right into that. But I just like my one question that I had was I think like you touched on a good point. Like, how do users like to interface, right, with technology? And I'm curious if or to what extent, if or what to what extent Microsoft is looking at like the different users. I myself, I have teenagers. Those teenagers who will be entering the workforce soon, right? Their expectations of technology is significantly different than myself, who grew up. I was in high school. No one had a computer, right? I mean, college, you had to go to the computer lab if you wanted to use a computer. So like I was right on that cusp of technology taking off.
Yes.
But you're 50 plus, right? Your expectations as a user are very different than a 20-year-old, for example, right?
No doubt. And there's a lot of research being done on this. How it will play out, I don't know. To be honest, I mean, because we're also at the point now where, as you said, we have such a diverse group of users. You have you and I. We're roughly in the same ballpark age-wise, right? We have expectations. We're working with forms over data for many years. Then to your point, Ken, like and you have also users who are born as digital natives, they have other expectations. So it's very likely that within the next 10 or 20 years, maybe even faster. I mean, gosh, who can predict the future right now? Who knows what will happen? How we'll answer is we already see now you can talk to a computer, much better than we could like 5 years ago. We see different types of glasses with on-screen display, being controlled like sort of blink or like all kinds of interface options. People even talk about like brain connected, like we're talking cyborg stuff right now. I don't say this happening in Microsoft, but it's just like what's happening out there. It's just crazy what's going on, and who knows what will happen in 5 years. I think I don't remember, but wasn't it Bill Gates that once said like when we try to predict the future, we tend to underestimate at the short term how far we'll come, but overestimate on the long term. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But who knows? Yeah.
No, I think you're right. And I'm going to tell you, I think Bill Gates himself underestimated that progress, because I recall a Microsoft Convergence event. This had to be maybe almost 20 years ago, where he spoke at the Convergence event, and his presentation was about the technology of tomorrow. And part of his presentation that he did like himself was like he's sitting at a desk with these 3 huge monitors like all around him, and like this is what it's going to be like. And I'm like it's the opposite, right? It's like you've got like a little device in your hand, and you're just verbally communicating. You don't need these huge monitors all around you. So it's kind of
my workstation.
No, but it's super interesting. It's super interesting. I also think right now in these AI times, and if you follow the news, you see these like doomsday kind of scary pictures about what AI will do. And not to say, I mean, there's a lot of risk, absolutely a lot of risk, especially on the whole, let's say, transparency, fairness, bias kind of side, no doubt, like in general for AI. But I think it's so easy to get caught up in like, in 20, 30 years, AI will rule the world, and, we'll have Skynet. And I just think in some cases we overestimate how far ahead we will be, like how far we have progressed. I think it's much more the short term, like in 3 years when we have a conversation. Hopefully it won't take that long, by the way, be that long. But 3 years when we talk, we'll probably be further ahead than we think right now. But 10 years, I don't know. And again, okay, so you could ask the question, will AI change that kind of like what that Bill Gates quote? Like, does AI change that perspective? I don't know. It's easier for us to think that change is exponential, and it is. I mean, it will be, and it will probably will be. But I don't know, man. It's hard.
It's fascinating.
He
Yeah.
fits
Yeah.
right in. Like I'm one of the people who think AI's coming, everything's changing fast. Ken's more like relaxed about it, and you, Soren, you're kind of in the middle, right? He's seeing both sides.
Yeah. I see both sides, but I also like it was more my perspective was more just about, I think it was overhype 1 to 2 years ago. There was like the hype, it just got out of control, like your point, where, oh my gosh, in 5 years, no one's gonna, whatever, right? Like the whole world's gonna be different. I said, let's just slow and we got to play it out, and let's see where this leads us and where the benefits are. It's not eventually maybe it touches everything, but I think for now there are these spots, right, where you insert it and it can have a major impact, but we got to figure out like, where are those opportunities?
Yes. I can tell you where it leads us. It leads us into being more productive without having to switch between apps, and right into Copilot for finance.
Very good, Michael. You're a pro.
No, but it's a good segue, Michael. I'll give you that. I just want to add one more comment before we go there, and I think so. To your point, Ken, and this is my personal opinion. Like, I don't see the fact that we now have AI being a reason for now to upend your business completely and say, oh, we should have an AI strategy and so on. I think, even though some companies will like to push that, which, especially tech providers, and but I think AI is just another tool in the toolbox. So you have your business strategy, you have your goals, you have whatever you want to achieve with your business. Okay, now can AI help you with that? Maybe, maybe not. If it can, then you can talk about having a strategy for how you implement AI. What things should you consider, and bias and fairness and transparency, and all these things, depending on if you bring your own models or work on platforms or in BC, or what do you know. So I think it's much more about, I mean, from that perspective, or no, sorry, that's one perspective. The other perspective is, okay, given our business strategy and where we want to go the next 5 years or whatever, can we reassess those goals through the lens of AI in a way where we said, oh, are there opportunities with AI we hadn't noticed, or issues we maybe didn't know we had. So I think it's just so important that we all of us try to bring all the use cases forward, say, where can you actually use AI, where does it work really well? And we've seen great examples of that, and we're all trying to figure that out. Where does it work well? Where does it not? Right. So, and yeah.
And Michael, one more thing. I always throw this out there that I have to say, we're a Business Central focused partner. We are very grateful for the fact that Microsoft is investing in Copilot and AI technologies within Business Central in the small to mid market, right? Because a lot of times you see these technologies for the enterprise, large, huge companies, and they get all the goodies. But like we appreciate very much that this is part of Business Central for small and mid market, and it's there, and it's coming, and there's going to be more, and it's included in the SKU. There's not even a Copilot SKU that you have to get, right? Like, this is
always
awesome.
Be free though.
I think it's important. One thing is that it's a company-wide thing. Like, we want to have Copilot. Like, there's not a product development team that can avoid thinking about Copilot and try to figure out where can Copilot play a part. But apart from that, I think you have a great point in the sense that small and medium-sized companies, depending on how you define small and medium, that depends a bit on the country and so on. But many of those, if they just hear AI as a technology and say, hey, oh, here's a great technology, you should use that, they wouldn't know where to begin. And maybe they don't even have the budget for, consultants and, pilots and projects. So we have to build in great AI features into the product they can start using. I think we have to, and it also is what will set us apart from the competition, I think.
For sure.
A lot of competition out there right now.
Okay, Michael,
Oh, yeah.
you wanted to talk about Copilot for Finance.
Oh yeah, we could segue right on into that.
Smooth.
Smooth. This was very smooth,
Yeah.
just like this blue moon.
Yeah. So
Um,
so Copilot for Finance. So let me just make a distinction here. So there's Copilot features for the finance area in BC, like things in the UI and things like that. We can imagine coming. You have one now with bank reconciliation. There's some matching and so on. And we'll see a continuation of that kind of thing. And we also have another agent that we're planning to build that we can talk about in sort of the payables bookkeeping agent. But Copilot for Finance specifically is a product in itself, as a SKU in itself. And excuse me. So the thinking behind Copilot for Finance is we wanted to address, and when I say we, I mean Microsoft as a whole, not just BC, want to address users who work with finance, but who have their daily life or their natural habitat inside the Microsoft 365 suite. So they work in Excel, in Outlook, and so on. But we wanted to arm them with ERP data coming from Business Central and from Dynamics 365 Finance and from SAP even. So there's now a first-party connectivity, like a built-in connectivity to these three systems. So SAP, D365 Finance, and Business Central. And right now, the primary user or the role that can benefit from this specific product is people who work with collections management. So you have customers with outstanding balances, because they would typically have communication with the customer in Outlook. Maybe the customer would send an email and say, "Hey, we don't get that last reminder you sent us. Something's not right. It doesn't match with our books. What's going on?" So right there within Outlook, you can connect to BC just using normal API connections under the hood. But Copilot for Finance, as this sidecar in Outlook, in this case, would surface the right customer based on the email and the contact attached to the customer, would show some key information about the aging balance and so on, show outstanding invoices. You can attach right in there to the email. If you say, "Hey, here's that invoice," you can update. If there's a dispute on a specific invoice, you can update it right in there from within Outlook, and it will be reflected within BC on the posted sales invoice that there's a dispute. So we have these dispute reasons or dispute status codes, we call them. You can update if there's a promise to pay. You can update the promise to pay date, which is also a field on the posted sales invoice in BC. Right there from within Outlook, you can update the contact. So if the contact that's writing to you has changed role, you can update their job title and things like that within Outlook. And you can then use normal Copilot features to draft up a new email, like draft a response to the customer, say, "Hey, just give it some wording, say, "Hey, we need payment by next Monday." Choose the tone of voice, things like that, and it will draft an email, attach the latest account statement that will pull from BC, things like that. So that's all within the realm of Outlook and collection management. Now, the next thing you have is within Excel, you have an option to reconcile two data sets. So basically, you point to two different Excel workbooks or two different tables and say, "Hey, what's in one and not in the other?" And Copilot will give you a nice overview of, "Hey, in all these thousands of transactions, I found this one here, but not in the other." So no more using X lookup and V lookup and things like that. So it would just give you a nice overview of, "Hey, this seems to be not to be in the other." So imagine the customer saying, "Hey, I'll just send over my list of invoices that I know about." And you go into BC and say edit in Excel, and you reconcile those two lists, and you'll get that whatever discrepancy there is, and you can write back to the customer and say, "Hey, I found this invoice. Let me just attach it again for you." This is not so. The Excel part is not integrated into BC the same way Outlook is. It just expects to have two Excel sheets, but because we have so great open and edit and Excel features in BC, it becomes a seamless experience. The final thing right now in Excel is what's coming up soon is a variance analysis feature in Excel. So let's say you have a data set with some budgeted and actuals and a lot of dimensions and a time period, you can run the variance analysis and ask for, first of all, tell me where is there a variance in the budget versus actuals, just for example, and it will highlight, oh, it's this column and this column and it's this row. And then you can ask it to analyze what's the cause of that variance, and it would dive into the dimensions and depending on the size of the data set, say, oh, it seems to be this and this that is the influencing factor of those variances, and you could dive deeper into that. So it's a super cool thing. So that's where it's begun, and that's only the beginning. So we imagine being able to do more stuff also for other roles from within Microsoft 365 to address. Obviously, this is AR. We might go AP at some point. We might add more scenarios, maybe bring Teams into the mix to be able to get a prep summary from Copilot before you call the customer to say, hey, where's our money? Just have that script prepared by Copilot to say, hey, what's the history with this customer? Chat with Copilot while you're talking to the customer about, hey, show me the last statement, or things like that. By the power of BC, or bringing data in from BC. So the cool thing about all of this is, with regular Copilot, from Bing Chat, we have the power of the internet, and the internet as a source, if you will. Like, you can ask and you get some answer about what's online. Now, that's one component. Now you bring in Office or Microsoft 365. You have now basically the whole knowledge of the graph, like your organization, and now bring in ERP data into that mix. That becomes a very powerful thing where Copilot can do stuff across these three things. One of the things that was on the roadmap, at least recently for Copilot for Finance, without knowing any dates, was macro analysis of a customer or industry, things like that. I mean, there's so many opportunities here. It's a matter of having time to execute on all of them, right? But the main thing is focus on the user who works within these applications. In this scenario with Outlook, before Copilot for Finance, they would have to go and switch between BC and Finance to find the invoice, find the customer, between BC and Outlook, and switch back and forth, wasting a lot of time. So there's some interesting statistics showing that most of us waste about 4 to 5 hours every week just switching applications. That's a lot. That's several weeks per year that we waste just switching, reorienting ourselves after we switch and come back. We get disrupted. If you could stay in that zone of work within Outlook and have the data by your side, that's the core thinking with of Copilot for Finance and Copilot for Sales, by the way. So the other Microsoft 365 driven Copilots.
Yeah, 4 to 5 hours a week. That's pretty good. I mean, can you also figure out a way to reduce people's wasted time on Instagram and TikTok? And
that's easy. delete your account. Yeah. No, I'm only half joking. No, but that's a really, I mean, now we get a bit more, let's say, non-work-ish, but that's a huge issue, right? I mean, everywhere. The time consumption spent on things in your own bubble. I almost get tired just by thinking about it. Right? So I actually deactivated my Facebook and Instagram and Twitter accounts here, like beginning of the year, and I haven't looked back. I don't have my LinkedIn account yet.
Really?
Yeah. Then don't ask me if I now spend all the time on LinkedIn instead. I don't know. Maybe exactly. I do.
Did that time go from X or Twitter to LinkedIn?
I'll tell you what. I probably spend more time on LinkedIn than I did before, but I feel a lot better, to be honest. I mean, the other social networks, if we call them that, just like on a personal note, they were messing up my mood, to be honest. I mean, I have a better life after deleting those accounts. Yeah.
I always have to tell people, like, I'm on Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook. Like, because it's there, but you're not gonna see or hear from
I
me
don't
on
want it.
there.
No,
at any
no.
point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I think you mentioned it in your presentation. I think it was a Harvard study that when you said we waste 4 to
Yeah,
5
the
hours
Harvard Business
switching.
Review. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of time, right? That's weeks in, but when you look at it from a year perspective, God.
Yeah.
So anything Microsoft could do to cut it back, I'm grateful.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, as an implementer, you mentioned the Copilot for Finance feature with the Excel where you can compare the two data sets. I watched the video showing that, like walking through how it works, and then like the very next day, we're working with a customer who is implementing Business Central, and we had their legacy system trial balance report. And then we had the trial balance report from within Business Central, and we had to reconcile those two, like at go live, to make sure that everything was tying out. And we thought there something was amiss. And like right away, I'm like, oh, I need Copilot for Finance. Like,
Yes.
but I had to go old school and like
Oh,
do the
yeah.
whole, VLOOKUP and all that
Yes.
fun stuff. Yeah.
Is there
Oh,
an added fee for Copilot for Finance? Sorry, I can't remember.
Sorry?
It is a SKU. The Copilot for Finance is
SKU.
like a SKU, right? That you have to.
Yeah, so we should probably mention that Copilot for Finance is still in public preview, meaning you can't buy it yet, and they're working out the monetization thing. So they're trying to figure out what should be the price and so on. So it's not GA yet. So I think they were originally hoping for September, October this year, but they had to postpone that because of the whole pricing thing. So,
Right.
wait, Ken, did you just pop open another one there?
He went for number 2.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good sign.
yeah. Thirsty today. You got a winner. You picked a
Good
winner.
call. Good call.
Yeah, we've had some bad beers. Oh, it's too funny.
Yeah.
So you got Copilot for Finance, and then I know that you've mentioned, I've seen on LinkedIn because I spent some time on LinkedIn too. You wanted some input and people to let you know about their bookkeeping role or whatever it may be. And you've mentioned that there's a bookkeeper agent in the works or discussion or whatever it may be. What what does that entail? I mean, is that geared for people who are bookkeepers, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So now the name is already out there because it was also on the roadmap slide for 2025 Wave 1 when we were at Vienna, in Vienna. So that's the thing with names, they tend to stick, right? So actually right now we decided to call it the payables bookkeeper agent because it's focused around payables and your purchases, not everything bookkeeper, because what is that even? There can be so many things.
Right. And when you say agent, I automatically now get the thought of AI infused. So
Automation.
yeah.
But that is true. There's an element of automation, there's an element of AI, and the core use case we would like to address is you receive invoices from your vendor, and to begin with, we will focus on expenses that have to do with driving your business. So not your supply chain, not the things that you have purchase orders for, but your overhead expenses like your rent, your phone bills, your heating, your what have you, all those things that every company has. We want to source those invoice attachments, basically, typically PDFs, maybe through SharePoint, maybe through email, and make sure that we can capture the information from those invoices. So what we're building an integration to Azure Document Intelligence, so Azure AI Document Intelligence, which is a state-of-the-art OCR, optical character recognition service that has sort of a pre-built AI model for detecting or reading invoices. So that means it's very, very good at reading what's on. Even you can imagine like the very complex invoice layouts. It works really well. Now we get that information back into BC, and now what happens to it? And this is where the kicker is So we want to now feed that invoice into a purchase invoice document, for example. Of course, you can also have companies that use journals, but we want to start probably with purchase invoices. That's the idea. But how do we know how to which purchase line invoice lines to create? Like, should we use a GL account? Which GL account? Is it a non-inventory item? Is it a resource, or is it allocation account? Should we use a deferral code? Should we use which dimension should we add on it? All those things now today exist in the minds of the bookkeepers, the AP bookkeeper or whoever is creating that purchase invoice. Or if you use other products like I won't mention like specific IVs, but if you use IV solution, you probably have some kind of mapping set up today that it recognizes. You just have some text to GL mapping or something like that. Well, if we don't want to go that route, how can Copilot, the LLM, how can that help us figure out this invoice? Oh, it seems to be about insurance. What kind of purchase line should I add then? Do we have a GL account that matches? Is it for the headquarters only? So there's a dimension, headquarters dimension, stuff like that. But then you might be thinking, well, yeah, that's great, but we all try to chat with Copilot, get the creativity of Copilot. How do I know it does the same thing tomorrow? So that's what we want to address. We want to bring super high reliability. And so what we're working on is a concept. We think of a concept called accounting guidelines or accounting policies. Imagine you have a document that describes how do you handle these kinds of expenses, written in natural language in a document. Maybe letting Copilot interpret that kind of document, and then we need to figure out how to go from there. Do we build some more like static rules, or do we rely on Copilot every time? Or so that's some things we need to figure out that we're in the process of right now. But the use case is getting these invoices in, getting them processed, getting them created as purchase invoices, and then ultimately posting them. And there could be multiple human in the loop stages in that process. Like, what if we don't know the vendor, or what if you need to approve it, or what if you want to approve it even before it becomes a purchase invoice because maybe it's a duplicate invoice, or someone tries to send you something that's not real, but it flies below the radar and you just, there's a risk that you'll pay it, or like all these things we need to figure out. But that's the idea. So it's borderline. You could call it an AP agent, but it's a payables bookkeeper agent because it handles the bookkeeper aspect of correct data entry, right, in an intelligent way with as little setup as possible. That's basically what we want to go to begin with. So it's early days, but yeah, as you said, Michael, I tried sort of ping the community, like CFOs and the finance people out there, to get their feedback, and some MVPs, obviously, and some partners, just to make sure we're on the right track and when we build this in a way that their customers would actually use. So yeah, super exciting.
Well, Ken, you're an accountant finance type of guy. Is that something you see?
I consider myself a failed accountant, right? Now I'm in technology. I apparently I overuse the phrase. I think that's immaterial. Or like, you know what? Just can't we put that into the suspense account and deal with it later? That difference, we can't resolve that. Let's just throw it in the suspense account and let's not worry about that. So but technology.
I want to see Ken start creating some accounting agents eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds.
I mean, the possibilities are endless, right? For agents, I mean, they can be anything, really.
Yeah. I think the key thing here is we want to make it possible. So we had a lot of feedback already, great conversations with, this is an area that historically companies would like to automate as much as possible, because no one thinks it's funny, not even the bookkeepers in many cases, to just sit and do a data entry of invoices and remember to do this and that. Chances are there are much more valuable stuff for these people to do within the companies. So we're not even talking about eliminating anyone's jobs. This is already something that's being automated to a large degree with different ISV solutions, maybe not just in the same way. So we're fairly certain about the use case and the usability of it. It's of course more, can we get it to work to the level that we would like? I'd like to think so, but I mean, we'll have to prove that.
I don't know
So
if your
it's
R&D department budget's big enough. At Microsoft.
no, yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, there's many uncertain things, right? I mean, and it's a funny thing. Like we're used to knowing the tools in our toolbox, right? Now, I mean, 3 years ago, we knew what AL could do. We knew what the BC client could do. We had a use case. We were fairly sure if we could build it or not because we had the tools and they were kind of static in a sense. Of course, we improved the development environment and so on. It was sometimes more, maybe in some cases, we were maybe only 80% sure about the use case. Like, seems feedback suggests that we should build this. And these days with AI, personally, I find it a bit more opposite. I'm fairly certain about the use case, but I'm more unsure if we can make it happen. Like so, but and that's the nature of being an innovator, right? So.
So I got a good, like, you can use this, you can take this one, but like the toolbox analogy, right? Yeah, we've got these tools, we know it is. I got right? There's a screwdriver, I have a wrench, I have a hammer, and now like in that toolbox, you've got a magic wand. And the magic wand, you flip it and you kind of don't know what it's going to do. You know what the hammer and the screwdriver is going to do and how you use that. But this magic wand, man,
kind of the right.
Let's see what happens.
Spell, yeah.
Right.
That's a great analogy, and I think our job is to. So no, there are kind of two elements. That one is that users and makers of AI features will have to get used to, maybe not in this specific finance or let's say bookkeeper scenario, but will have to get used to the creativity of AI when it comes to these sort of LLM-based, ChatGPT-based features. That creativity is a feature; it's not a bug. So there's a element of education for all of us to get that under our skin. That's the nature of these features. But to your point, Ken, about makers and when we look in our toolbox and what to build, when we then wave that magic wand, how can we somehow set some rails and some goals or some limits for what that magic wand can produce? And that's the hard thing, right? That because we want to say no, it's only these outcomes that are acceptable, or try again until you get the right one, or get another magic wand to validate the first one, to course correct the first one. So have Copilot course correct itself, like that kind of thing. So there's all kinds of techniques we can do that no one sees, but it's under the hood that we can try to make Copilot true to its original purpose, if you will.
Sounds like you need a spell book.
Mind blown.
Yeah, well, so it's always pretty cool to have a diverse set of range of tools. But what's even more cool is having diversity in dynamics.
Great segue, Mike.
I'm on a roll.
Keep trying, buddy.
Oh, too funny.
Oh,
Speaking of diversity and dynamics, I noticed that you guys have changed the name or are changing the name from Women in Dynamics to Diversity in Dynamics, and I'm just assuming that it's evolving more, and that's what's behind the name change, or am I wrong?
No, that's true. We had a vision back when we started Women in Dynamics. We knew that we were going to bring it to, let's say, broaden out the mission at some point. But we also felt there was such a big issue or big gap, which there still is, with women in dynamics, and we'll keep fighting that fight still, and we need to find out how we balance that. But we also felt that now that it was a good time to broaden the mission. Like now we have a few years of experience with driving that organization. Now was a good time to build upon that foundation and then expand to more topics like gender identity, disability, neurodiversity, and these kinds of topics that's also important. Not least because, and that became evident in Vienna at a at the Last Directions conference is diversity is increasing. Like, just look at all the young people coming into the channel. People of all kinds of backgrounds, and not least driven by the reskill program that Microsoft also has a stake in. Like, I mean, just the gender diversity there is just phenomenal. You have people getting into that program where that person is the first one in the family to have a job in tech, or even with an education. Like, there's so many different factors where this program is really lifting the lifting the whole community. So we felt there needed to be an organization to embrace that diversity. So wherever you are. So actually, what happened was we announced that at the conference, and had a sort of small event there, and there was a lot of great reactions to it. You know, people coming up, you wouldn't know, like, if you hadn't seen it, like, oh, I have ADHD, or, you know, I'm struggling with PTSD, or, you know, I've never really felt that my employer, you know, took care of me, but now I do. Like, all kinds of reactions, really phenomenal. So I think it was a good move to broaden, and now we need to figure out how is it supposed to work. Like, what happens now? What's our mandate, and how do we go about it? And obviously, that's the challenge with broadening out. With now, I think we have sort of 5 pillars instead of 1 with women in dynamics. Now we have 5 areas for which the needs are very different. Like, if you're in the neurodiversity space, you have different needs than if you're a woman, or you can be both. Like, that's you can have all mixes of these. So we need to figure out, and what we're planning is to do like charters, like have sort of a community leader within each of these, and try to figure out how do we best address that group of people within that specific topic, like neurodiversity or disability. So what we tried now was to get people to sign up. So on diversitydynamics.org, you can sign up if you're listening to this, and basically what you're doing right now is just sign up, and then we'll figure out how to make use of you. That's basically what the plan is right now, because we haven't figured it out, but hopefully we will soon.
I think I believe we have somebody who has tried signing up within our office, but they have not heard back yet. Should they follow up, or is it just a process and they sit back and wait? Or
I'm hoping it's because we're still sort of regrouping after directions and, you know, getting overview. And I know there was a meeting today. Actually, I didn't attend it, but there was a meeting today where we sort of, you know, went through what happened at directions, what were the reactions, and what are the next actions. So I would like to calm that person and say, yes, you'll hear something soon, hopefully within a few weeks.
Perfect.
But thank you for bringing that to attention.
Anybody can join the organization, or I don't want to call it organization, the group. Anybody can join the group, and you welcome all comers to join the group.
Absolutely, and even if you don't feel you fit within any of these charters, like, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be on the neurodiversity spectrum, or be a woman, or have a disability. I mean, we need all the allies we can get. Right. Obviously, we would like people within these groups to be part of it, so we know about the challenges. But we need everyone. So please, and it could be practical stuff. It can be role models. It can be like people we can highlight on our on our website, do blog posts and stories and what have you. It could be anything.
No, it's a great group, and I've always been proud of the fact that I think at our organization it's a 50-50 men and women, and you know, a lot of significant contributors, across the organization. So it's something we've always been really proud of. I'll tell you a funny story. Like, gosh, it was 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. There was a Women in Dynamics luncheon at one of the conferences. I forget. May have been Summit.
Maybe was it North America, Direction North America, I think.
North American Summit Conference. And one of our clients was on the speaker panel. So, went to support her and, attend. And at that time, I got to tell you, I think me and maybe one other man in the room, and I was kind of surprised, but it was hundreds of women, and a really great turnout and good conversation. I did feel a little bit like I was infiltrating
Yeah.
on their the special event, and it was great. It was
That's why they've changed the name now to
it's very well done, and so it was all good. It was my own personal deficiency and feelings that led to that, but no, it was really cool.
No, that's well. First of all, well done. Also within the company, you have such great diversity, gender diversity. But I think what you mentioned there is probably normal. Last year in Directions EMEA in Lyon, I tried to do a session for women in dynamics at the time, called a session for guys. Trying to bring as many male audience in that I could because that was maybe the provoking thing about the session was it says if you're just a passive bystander and saying, yeah, of course I would like more women into the dynamics community, but what more can I do? Hey, you are kind of part of the problem if you're not actively engaging in it in some way, like in some cases speaking up or taking some initiatives and having conversations about it. We each find our way depending on how much we're comfortable with it. But that's the thing with changing cultures. It's hard, right? But slowly it will move. So I'd like to think that we've moved the needle, but of course tracking this has been difficult. Like tracking how much does gender does the needle move on gender within the member companies of Women in Dynamics. Obviously, it becomes even harder to track the other factors because it's much more personal. Like many people probably out there struggle with, as I do, with PTSD, but we don't know about it, and they don't tell their employer, and shouldn't if they don't want to, right? So, yeah, we don't have the same tracking desires as we used to with Women in Dynamics. That was a much easier, you would think, at least an easier KPI to track. Yeah. So yeah, let's see how it's going to play out. It will be super interesting, but we're happy we made the move for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And we're big fans.
Yeah, interesting to see how it plays out as well. All right. Well, I don't think I have any more questions.
No, we got to rate this beer. So we always, right? So as a reminder, right, we rate from 0 to 100, 100 being the best. And my personal rule of thumb is if it's over a 50, I'll have a second one, right? If I'm like I don't really want another one, then you're getting below 50. So I like this. I really like this. A while back, I had to do a re-ranking because my rankings were so poor when we started this. So I do cheat and I look at like my previous rankings and everything. So Blue Moon, I like it, and this is it may not sound awesome, but like 76 out of 100.
Yeah,
that is a pretty good score.
Oh,
so
that's what I'll go next. I tend to like more strong things, whatever, but I love Blue Moon. I'm going 92. I'm giving it a solid 92. Wow. I really like Blue Moon. Yeah, I could drink a bunch of these. This is a good beer.
Over 90. Wow. Look at you. All right. Yeah, Søren.
And that's an interesting thing you just mentioned there, Michael. So you could drink a bunch of these, like, because sometimes you can only have one, then it becomes too much, like, of some beer, right? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just because it's it's heavy or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And other beers you can just keep pulling down.
You mean like a Trappist Roquefort 10?
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, the last one. Yeah, that's one of those. After one, you're okay. That's true. Good memory. Yeah, good memory. No, I would go in between, and I'm probably around the 80, 82 on this. I mean, I really love it. And it's also because it brings so many memories with me from time in the US. And after a long flight, you go into the hotel bar, you get just like cold
5 or
glass
6.
of Blue Moon. It's just
It's
yeah,
that light
yeah,
air. That light air. You get dehydrated a little bit. You need to
yeah,
replenish rehydrate. Perfect.
absolutely, absolutely. No, and it's yeah. I'll untap this right away for the I don't God knows how many times and add a rating to it. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'd encourage you to try it with the orange and let us
Yes.
know if your rating changes. I think my rating is actually higher
Oh, sure.
because the orange infused into it. Yeah. So
No, that's
it
such a
makes a
good
big
point.
difference.
That's
For
such a good point. There's a Danish no, it's probably one of the many breweries that Carlsberg bought over the years, but this is I don't know if you know it in the US, but it's called Kronenbourg 1627 or something like that, or 1827. No, it's
Krombacher, but I bet that's German, I think.
yeah, no, this is a French one, I think, but it has the same quality. Like it's kind of floral in a way, but then you add that slice of lemon, and it just balances out perfectly. There's something in that just adds that, you know.
You put a lemon in that one.
Yeah, I guess this is the same concept. Like it reinforces some of those the things that are already in it. I have to try that. Maybe I'll go do it right away.
Yeah, let us know how it is. That's interesting. A lemon in a beer, right? Because lemon is very like tart, a little bit more acidity.
Acidic.
So it depends on the beer, right? I think
Yeah.
it would go
Yeah.
well. That's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so we got scores across the board, and
Yeah.
we'll just say we appreciate you joining us again, Soren. Hopefully, we don't take another year and a half to get you back on the podcast and catch up, my friend. It's always a good time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Always.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's very, very enlightening, and we love it. Hearing direct from the source, right? Going right to the source. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for all the great questions and insights. It's important for us to sort of bounce our thoughts with people like you as well. So thank you so much.
All right, we will talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
As we end today's podcast, we want to give a big thank you to everyone who listens, shares this podcast, and leaves us reviews. You've taken a good amount of your time out of your day, and we truly appreciate it. Thanks again, and don't be afraid to email us at marketing@solsyst.com with your tips for the podcast, or maybe you'd even like to be a guest during an episode.